Gambling is risky, but that doesn't stop some people from doing it. People will bet on almost anything. An illegal chicken fight, a basketball game, a street race, or in our case, a mixed martial arts fight. And we all know that MMA is insanely notorious for being unpredictable. We've seen underdogs beat heavy favorites time and time again, turning the tables and beating the odds. Yet somehow, no matter how many times we've been shown that MMA is as unpredictable as a volcano about to erupt, we still get shocked whenever we see an underdog snatch the victory from their rival. Hey, this is MMA EDGE, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 greatest fights in the UFC that were won by underdogs. I hope you won't leave your cash on that betting window after watching this video. Number 5. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 1. Conor McGregor was the heavy favorite coming into his fight with Nate Diaz in the 170-pound division. After all, the Irishman had just defeated world-class fighters such as Dustin Poirier, Jose Aldo, Chad Mendes, and Max Holloway. Surely someone like Nate Diaz would be a walk in the park for a fighter of Conor McGregor's caliber, right? Right? Wrong. McGregor brought his usual attitude with him in all of the press conferences before the fight, with Nate Diaz firing back some of his own shots at the Irishman. Yet everyone generally thought that Conor would simply roll over Diaz and move on to look for another win in the 170-pound division, or look for a fight in the lightweight division next. Unfortunately for him, Nate Diaz outlasted him throughout their fight and managed to sneak in the rear naked choke in the second round of their bout. Conor was actually doing pretty well in the first round of the fight, but looked as if he'd exerted too much effort in trying to knock out Diaz early on. And just when everyone thought that Conor McGregor was invincible, Nate Diaz, the heavy underdog of UFC 196, proved them and all of his critics wrong. Number 4. Anthony Pettis versus Stephen Thompson. Now, I'm sure that even some of the biggest Pettis fans out there had their doubts about this fight. We all know just how good Pettis is on his feet, but against the guy who's been a long-time top contender in the 170-pound division, in a weight class that he's never fought in since 2006? Well, let's just say there was a reason why Pettis came into this fight as the plus 350 underdog. And to Thompson's credit, he clearly looked as if he had everything under control in the first round of the fight. Wonder Boy began doing what he always did best against Pettis and began running circles around him while peppering him with accurate jabs and mixing it up with a variety of head and body kicks. Pettis did nothing but strike Thompson's thighs down with leg kick after leg kick. It looked as if Pettis didn't stand a chance against the karate master, but Showtime simply kept his composure and stuck to his plan. Once round 2 began, Pettis started to get a bit more aggressive, and a few minutes later shocked the world by knocking out one of the best welterweight fighters in the world. Pettis' win over Thompson took everyone by surprise, as nobody thought Pettis would beat Wonder Boy, let alone knock him out the way he did. Number 3. TJ Dillashaw versus Renan Barão. This fight is arguably one of the most shocking and surprising bouts in the history of the UFC. Renan Barão, the former bantamweight king, came into this fight with a ridiculous 32-fight win streak in and outside of the UFC, with wins over world-class fighters like Michael McDonald, Eddie Wineland, and Uriah Faber. Barão was often regarded as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in the entire planet, and was definitely hailed as the best fighter in his weight division when he was still the champion. Nobody really thought that the plus 580 underdog TJ Dillashaw stood a chance against Barão, especially after seeing Barão make quick work of TJ's teammate Uriah Faber. However, Dillashaw knew exactly what he was capable of and what he had to do against someone like Renan Barão. Dillashaw showed everyone just how good he was by dominating the first few rounds of their bout and even going as far as knocking down Barão with a killer left straight that sent the Brazilian crashing down to the mat. Dillashaw ultimately went on to shock the world after a 5-round war with Renan Barão that saw him as the winner, knocking out the bantamweight legend and securing his place as the next greatest 135-pound king. Number 2. Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. The UFC was desperately looking for a good opponent for the unbeatable Anderson Silva in his prime, as he pretty much knocked off every single person they've had to offer him in his legendary 16-fight win streak. However, the then undefeated Chris Weidman stepped up and took the challenge of facing the Spider, something that most fighters would often think twice about doing. The two warriors ultimately faced off at UFC 162, and Silva walked into the octagon as a heavy favorite. Everyone thought that Weidman was going to fall victim to Silva's superior striking skills and that his name would simply be added to Silva's list of fighters he's already beaten. Unfortunately for Silva, Weidman proved that he was more than enough to end the legendary fighter's reign of terror. Weidman left the Vegas crowd with their mouths agape as he not only defeated the once pound-for-pound greatest fighter of all time, but knocked him out in spectacular fashion as well. Weidman's iconic victory over the Spider continues to be one of the greatest underdog surprise wins in MMA until today. Number 1. Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm. Okay, let's be honest here. I'm sure that those of you who watched this fight live never thought that Holm was going to shock the world and beat Rousey the way she did. I'm pretty certain that the hardcore fans out there will say that her win wasn't that surprising, especially since Holm was already a decorated boxer outside of the UFC and was one of the best strikers in the division at the time. Yet, when Holm did the impossible and knocked out the legendary Ronda Rousey, nobody saw it coming. In fact, people were so confident that Rousey was going to win that Holm walked into that fight as the plus 1100 underdog. Holm was quite possibly the biggest underdog at the time, yet despite facing almost unbeatable odds, she kept herself calm and stuck to her game plan, eventually knocking out Rousey in the second round of their fight in UFC 193. Holm's spectacular win over Rousey will probably remain as the greatest win any underdog has ever had in the UFC, which is exactly why their fight has snatched the number 1 spot on our list today. And that's going to be it for today's video. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment if you want some more of that awesome MMA content coming your way.